where Translink would continue to play its proposed a catalyst and convening role, bringing together the municipalities that want to participate in an IMBL. It is a voluntary basis to design that bylaw to introduce to municipal councils by the end of January for consideration that is consistent on what the business licensing conditions would be that all councils could consider. And the second part of this would be a suggestion at this point that any councils that have already adopted either defer or make sure that their bylaws are consistent with where we're going or do not act at all. The fear being that if we have even one IMBL and then a number of other business licensing, that still creates a new threshold that's difficult for the TNS operators to exist upon. So we are suggesting that Translink would play a convening role. We do not have the authority at this time, even if we wanted it, which we have not gone through that effort yet to fully analyze. Some of that is done in the main report, but we would be convening the municipalities, looking at probably one designated municipality to collect the fees, but a working group of those municipalities would establish what the actual bylaw looks like, what the fee structure would be that is cost neutral. That's the basis of business licenses and IMBLs within the province, and redistribute the fees that come in based on the costs that are incurred. Translink's additional role in this would most likely be to manage the data that is being requested on a common platform and develop privacy protocols, et cetera. We'd still need to explore how this would work. We're working in real time. But we obviously have that expertise through Compass and other things that we do, so it's not an alien approach for us to do something like that, but that's what we would explore in the next 6 weeks or so. So I'll leave it at that, Chair, and open it up to any questions. Okay, well, appreciate the update. On the screen there is the recommendation, the revised recommendation that's being put forward to this body. I'm now going to open up Mayor Kennedy Stewart.
Great, thanks very much. So the province decided some time ago that we're going to have ride-hailing here in the province, and now we need to get on with this intermunicipal business license so we can get on with bringing ride-hailing to all our residents who are demanding it. When we set up our business license in the City of Vancouver, we set it up on a cost recovery model. We're going to have between 5,000 and 10,000 a fleet of 5,000 to 10,000 vehicles coming into the downtown Vancouver, and we need certain bits of infrastructure in place, like signage and bays for people to disembark in. And so that was really the purpose behind our business license, was to cost recover, so those costs didn't land on the backs of those paying property taxes in the city. However, to move ahead with this regional license, municipal license, we're willing to entertain the idea of lowering our business license fees in order to facilitate cooperation across the region. Because there is a fear, too, that we could lose our jurisdiction to the province, that they're so keen to move ahead with this that if we hold it up in any way, that we'll lose our local ability of any regulation over this industry. So I would really advise that we move ahead with this. Again, I would go back to my council. I'd be certainly willing to lower business license fees for this to make the regional model work, although of course all our councils would have to pass that. I do, though, in lowering it, I would also have to assure the taxpayers in Vancouver that we're not picking up any extra fees, that we're not in some way subsidizing the ride-hailing companies. And so I've put an amendment forward that I would like to add, which asks for provincial help for any municipality that is incurring setup fees, and I think the text is there for. So
I'm wondering if Mike, if you can add that text, because I don't think any of us around the table have.
So this amendment is asking the province to work with Zone 1 municipalities and Translink to ensure that municipalities who choose to waive or delay the local ride-hailing licensing fee, which, of course, personally I would be willing to do, and I think our council would definitely entertain, is that we're not forced to bear administrative or enforcement costs without compensation. How we work that out is fair, but this is, I think, urgently needed. All three of these clauses are urgently needed to move ahead with ride hailing, which the citizens want, and the province is going to move ahead with regardless of what we do. So I'd like to be part of regulating this industry, and I've seen what's happened in other municipalities around North America that have kind of allowed the state level or the province level to regulate it, is that local municipalities are left without any control, and that's a detriment when it comes to things like controlling congestion and other facets of this new industry. So that's my proposal.
Okay, so initially looking at it, it doesn't look too inconsistent. It just adds some further detail, but I'm wondering if staff just have any comment for the Mayor's Council, given that we are just kind of looking at the amendment right now, if there's any thoughts as to how this would work in the process.
So part of the model going forward will be working with a working group, if this is adopted, to set those fees and understand what the cost recovery model would look like, including we're doing that work right now on what the administration, both of the license and the collection and distribution of the revenues would be, and then the component around enforcement and how that is modeled as well, and the data management. So I think we will go through a cost exercise in establishing this, and then understand what each municipality would bear and to what degree do the fees fully compensate that, or might there be some subsidy required in the next couple of months.
Okay, so I don't see anything inconsistent with this addition here. I think it's just a further protection from the cities as we go through this process. So Mayor Stewart, maybe if you want to move this entire motion, including
Sure.
point 3.
Yes, I will move the entire
Is there a seconder to that? Okay, Mayor Richard Stewart.
Okay, well, I'm glad the amendment is now part of it. I don't know that it will have a great effect. It doesn't trouble me. We in Coquitlam have just on Monday night passed the intermunicipal business license that Mayor West and Mayor Vagromov and others at the table, that Tri-Cities has always tried to do a mobile business license, and this is a natural extension to the existing mobile business license structure to allow that companies or individuals who do business in multiple municipalities don't have to take out a license in each one. This is a natural, and I'd love to see the region actually get to the point where we could do this with lots of other mobile businesses. But I will be supportive of this measure. I'll also, though, ask us to contemplate the province has put in place the reality that of trade dress, of age of vehicle, and various other things that local governments can tinker with in this. And I don't know that I'd love to see us at least contemplate being somewhat consistent across the region in that regard too. Because if ride hail is going to function as it does in other jurisdictions, it's going to do it because we work as a region and not as 22 jurisdictions, and that applies to a whole bunch of what we do. It works a whole lot better if we function as a region rather than as 22 autonomous cities in every regard. So I'm hopeful that this provides a solution in the medium term to get ride hail here, because it's been way too long that we've been waiting.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Dingwall.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. And from my perspective, this is a really important governance and jurisdictional decision by this body. It allows us to be the masters dealing with transportation issues in the Metro Vancouver area. The second one for me, and it contemplates working with the Fraser Valley Regional District as well as Squamish, and again, I think it sends all the right messages to everyone around collaborative efforts to help benefit our citizens and their movement throughout our region, but also the other regions. I think, and I've said this before in certain circumstances, and I know once with Metro Vancouver, that this is a defining moment, I do believe, for this body, and that we are regionally thinking. This isn't individuals. We come here to try and collaborate, and I do believe that we have that opportunity to do it. Citizens generally, I think, are in vast support of ride-hailing, but particularly for my community in Pitt Meadows, I know they are. We don't have a lot of other options, and including taxis, and so this provides those options. But What it does is it really helps to increase our citizens' confidence in Translink, in this board, and in the mayors that sit around, that we have their best interests in mind, and that we're trying to move forward with a regional system of business licensing that takes the bureaucracy out of it. And so I'm completely in support of moving forward with trying to develop an intermunicipal business license.
Thank you. Mayor Froese.
Thank you very much. I fully I'll put this on. Thank you very much. Fully support this motion. I think it's time that we move forward. And I appreciate I sent a letter out a couple of months ago to mayors throughout Fraser Valley Regional District and Metro, and I received a lot of support for getting this started. And I really appreciate the fact that there's a deadline in January 31st. We can't, you know, I think as a group of mayors and with the help of the staff, we can get this done quickly, get it to our municipalities, and have some consistency in our playing field. You know, I've heard that we're treating taxis unfairly or other businesses, and you know, I'm reminded and had some information regarding a case in Ontario where Toronto did challenge that, and the court in Ontario decided, it came down to the ruling that they are separate businesses, ride-hailing and taxi, and are regulated separately. So I'm comfortable that we're not being discriminatory against one sector of the transportation industry, that this is important, and that the residents of British Columbia have been waiting for this. And one thing I do appreciate is that we did take some time. That we've seen the pitfalls and challenges in other jurisdictions throughout North America, and I think we're addressing some of those through our desire to deal with congestion and in a variety of ways, and not rushing into it. But it's time we get into this, and I'm fully supportive of this, and I hope that all the mayors will support moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mayor West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I want to pick up on the comments of my friend from Pitt Meadows, because I do believe the stakes are very high for us. I think the public has made very clear their expectations. Certainly, they've been very loud to me in Port Coquitlam. And I think a failure here would put amalgamation on the tips of many people's tongues. They expect us to be able to come together and get something like this done. I think there's a couple of key points I want to make, and I wish the working group all the best in what they're about to embark on in a very short period of time. Obviously, the devil will be in the details in terms of the fees that are brought forward. We have already a number of municipalities that have gone in divergent ways with respect to that question. Appreciate the comments from Mayor Stewart of Vancouver and the leadership he's shown to say that the City of Vancouver is willing to look at what they've done and have the potential to scale that down. I think it's really important that the fee, the business license fee, obviously be cost neutral. I appreciate the comments of that. That's a requirement, as I understand it, that this not become a money-making exercise for municipalities, but is to cover the cost that we're going to that we're going to have because of this business, and not look at it as a way to make money for the municipality. I hope in the work of the working group that they will put at the top of their list, prioritize the viability of the service, because I think that is the public's expectation from all of this, that whatever we do, we are supporting and encouraging the viability of the service, not prohibiting it. And the last comment I want to make is that although there are a number of issues with respect to ride hailing, I think we really need to focus on what our job is, and our job is very simple: to issue a business license. The other issues associated with ride hailing are ones that the provincial government is responsible for. We've been tasked with issuing a business license. I think we need to do that in the most straightforward, common sense, and quickest way possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Hurley.
Yeah, I'm supportive overall of the regional approach to licensing. However, I encourage the working group to ensure that there's as level a playing field as possible between different industries, because I do not support giving one industry a leg up over the other. I'm all for competition and fair competition. But I'm hoping that the working group really has a strong look at this to ensure that there's a level playing field for whoever enters the industry in any way. And I do not buy into what was said here, the gig-based drivers, whatever that means. I'm not even sure that's a factual piece. But, you know, it's very, very important from Burnaby's perspective that there's a very level playing field to whatever happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor McCallum.
Thank you very much. I do not support ride hailing, and I've been consistent for over a year in that, and even before that. A large majority of our residents do not support ride hailing in Surrey, and basically it is because it's not a level playing field. There's a lot of differences of levels that are not consistent between rail or ride hailing and taxis. I'll give you one that when I was mayor before, different governments restricted the number of taxis that cities could have year over year over year. In Surrey, we tried to get more and more taxis into our city, but provincial governments of all stripes said, no, you can't have them. So there was real tough restrictions on the taxi industry so that they couldn't provide the service. They couldn't get taxis into our cities. Then all of a sudden ride hailing comes along and they can have as many cars as they want in the Surrey. That's just one example of not having a level playing field. And so again, a large percent of our residents, and I'm speaking for those residents, do not support ride hailing. And because of that, we will not be supporting the recommendation that's on the floor.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Buchanan.
Thank you very much. Well, I certainly support the resolution that's on the floor. I believe very strongly in partnerships and collaboration, and the saying, if we want to go far, then we go together. And I think we are, we have the transportation system that has multiple stakeholders. We have multiple, the transportation system is changing rapidly, and we want to be a player at the table. I'm not one, and I don't think there's many of us around this table who like to be told what to do by the province. We want to be part of the solution, and we want to be at the table creating the framework and not reacting to the framework. And I think it's important for us to be able to do that. I also think, you know, some of the comments, agree with some of the comments, Mayor Dingwall, in terms of looking beyond our own region, looking at the Fraser Valley Regional District as well as the Squamish-Whistler corridor. And my understanding is, and certainly Mayor Booth and I have, and others, particularly on the North Shore, have had conversations with the Mayor of Squamish. And my understanding is the Mayor of Squamish and the Mayor of Whistler are both very supportive of looking at beyond our region, but looking at across, you know, from that corridor across the region out to the Fraser Valley as well. And I think that's going to be incredibly important. We plan the transportation system as a system. We know there's no silver bullet to make this you know, problem of our congestion go away, but we need to put everything in place that's going to provide options for our citizens. I think, having said that too, I think what's really incredibly important is being a player at the table. We need to make sure that the goals and objectives that we are trying to achieve within the region are also met, so that we're very clear of what our principles are. And so yes, we want the service to be viable, to Mayor West's comments, but we also want to make sure that, and thank you, Mr. Corbett, for coming, and I think you were listening to what I was saying in the room previously, but that also facilitates our goals of the larger principles that we're trying to achieve across the region, so that we're not compromising safety for our citizens, that there's minimal, as much as we can mitigate the impact that we'll have on our ridership for Translink, because that obviously impacts our revenue source to be able to expand our service. but also supports our larger goals of reducing congestion. So we don't want to have this system come in and then just add more congestion. We want to try to mitigate that as much as possible. And we also want to make sure that we're mitigating some of the large climate goals that we're trying to achieve, or sorry, we want to mitigate the GHG emissions to achieve the climate goals that we're trying to achieve. So I think all in all, this is a good place to be in the sense of it's not perfect, but we get to be a player at the table and be part of the solution and not reacting to something that's being given to us by the province. So with that, I fully support this moving forward.
Thank you. Mayor Little.
Thank you, Chair. Our community just hosted a workshop on the subject of ride-hailing just this last week, and again, we advanced unanimously at our council, partnering with our neighbors, West Vancouver and the City of North Vancouver, to come up with some local conditions that work for us. I guess so then my question through to staff at this point would be, what do you anticipate being the what levels of autonomy will still exist under an example like this? So for instance, some municipalities want to put resources into pullouts. Some municipalities want to create drop-off and consolidated locations for pickups. Our community wants to keep it as a very high priority to make sure that accessible services are still available for persons with disabilities, that recognizing that that's something that typically ride-hailing services have difficulty incentivizing, and it's something that typically goes to the taxi services. So what kinds of local autonomy will still exist under this so that municipalities, yes, the business license is administered regionally, but you would still have controls over a great many aspects?
Yeah, Mayor Little, that's a very good question, and I think it's important to distinguish. There's really the business license process, and then there's the street and traffic bylaws, which every municipality has control over. You still maintain full autonomy to regulate where pickups and drop-offs happen, how much you want to charge if there's a fee to park in an area or to lay over or to drop off in an area. And ultimately, the business license establishes the relationship with those companies and allows you to request the data so that then every municipality can manage your streets and curbs in whatever way you want. In a much more dynamic and robust way than you would be able to without a business license and without having access to that data. So I think that's the main thing. In terms of accessible transport, I know the province, with their 30-cent per trip fee for non-accessible vehicles, the goal there is to be reinvesting that money into accessible services. So I don't think the province has committed exactly how they're going to be doing that yet. They've let us know that they plan to sort of wait and see what the issues are and how much money they're generating, and then kind of have conversations with us about how to invest that money.
I just have a supplemental question on that. So what I'm trying to figure out is the business license is it's a sword. It's a way to, it's the stick, right? It's a way to be a regulator and control business operations within our community. And so what I worry about this by pushing the business license to the region is when I want to enforce a pickup location, the tools available to me are very limited at that point because I'm no longer the regulator, I'm no longer in control of the business license. And so how would you anticipate using your regulatory power as the business license issuer to help municipalities enforce their local regulations?
I can start, and maybe Jeff, you can follow up. But I think the key thing in the business license would just be to clarify that the companies are required to follow the local street and traffic bylaws, and then and any additional local regulations. And then every local authority would be able to set those as they wished. The license sort of is those companies are agreeing to follow those rules, and they're providing the data to us and to you to prove that they're following those rules. And then there would need to be local bylaw enforcement officers out on the ground to actually make sure that that's happening. If they're picking up and dropping off in areas where you don't want them, or they're not paying, if there's a charge to wait in a particularly high demand area, that becomes sort of an enforcement relationship.
And it's important in an interim basis, and this is why we're in front of you with an on-table report. We had hoped to spend more months doing this, and what we get to more as a permanent basis, if there is an approach in that regard, and the entity that does that is still to be determined. We're not proposing at this point in the interim that Translink be the regulator. Translink is the convener, like we do for many other transportation type issues, but that there be one set municipality at that point that would be the collector of the fees, but we would convene the conversation to make sure whatever that license bylaw is, that it's consistent and it takes into account all of those considerations, and then there's just one licensing for each one of those companies. We would then probably, we need to still explore this, be the custodians of the data to be able to have a common platform and be able to provide that to, say, your transportation engineers and say, are they conforming? Are we getting the trips like we thought we were going to do, et cetera?
If I could just clarify again, I think that's a really good distinction that each municipality is still the regulator, that's the key distinction within IMBL is sort of more like a free trade agreement. You're just all agreeing to regulate to the same rules at a high level. So the IMBL, the bylaw and business license itself would be fairly broad and then would just refer to local street and traffic bylaws, which then you could each set as you wished.
Thank you. Mayor Walker.
Thank you, Chairperson Cote. I am in support of this motion as well. Although, as I said earlier, I'm not sure when something like this is going to come to my community. I do want to be part of the early discussions. We want to be part of them so we have an idea of what's coming and also so we have input to what those discussions look like. Part of my concerns have been answered by questions that both Mayor Little and Mayor Buchanan have asked. I guess what I really want to know is what role do we play as opposed to what role does the province play? In other words, what rights do we have above and beyond the power of the province? What is it we can do as we move forward as this particular group of municipalities?
Sure, that's another good question, Mayor Walker. I think the Appendix A in that original report does summarize sort of the key powers that the province has, and that's with respect really to regulating and authorizing the companies, the vehicles, and the drivers. And so they're really making sure that the companies are above board, that the vehicles are safe, and that the drivers, in terms of their chauffeur permit equivalent or the safety criminal record check, is all taken care of. So that's essentially what the province is doing, which fundamentally means that they're taking care of the basics. And if a municipality or a group of municipalities doesn't want to do anything above and beyond that, nothing else is required. What the province has enabled cities to do is to regulate some elements, or to have a municipal business license that regulates some elements. I think Mayor Richard Stewart alluded to earlier, trade dress, vehicle age, requirements around emissions, and then in addition, referring or data requirements that would be required to be submitted by the companies, and then referring to specifically street and traffic bylaws that they would need to follow. So it's really much more about local management of the local transportation system, not really about the companies, the drivers, or the vehicles.
And may I add, Chair, to the question that Mayor Westler brought up too, as being a proponent in making sure that we are trying to make it viable. One of the options too in getting the data and having this licensing is also the ability to understand what trips are being made or not being made. Are there actions that we need to take as a region or as each municipality to try and incentivize trips, run into partnerships, things like that? So it does provide that opening to try and maximize the benefits of ride hailing.
Okay,
Taxi companies are made to accommodate.
So
why aren't ride hailing companies? Unfair competition.
Okay, Mayor Vagerma.
Thank you, Chair. I'm feeling a sense of urgency on this issue. Folks in our region are unimpressed with the fact that ride-hailing keeps getting delayed. Everyone in BC knew that this was coming down the pipe for months, so I'm personally surprised that the conversation around a regional framework hasn't happened until right now. But that being said, I am supportive of the resolution. I would like to see enhanced collaboration with Fraser Valley and Squamish-Lillooet. And I'm hopeful to see a framework adopted as soon as humanly possible.
Thank you. Well, appreciate all the comments around the table. I think this really is the right approach for us to be taking, and I think we need to be able to demonstrate that we're able to work together and come together as a region on this issue. There's no doubt there's a a whole bunch of complex issues related to ride hailing. From my perspective, though, the lens around this table that's the most important is the transportation lens. How is this going to impact transportation in our region, and particularly our goals as set out in our long-term plan? I think as clearly as evident, I think there's definitely some opportunities ride hailing can bring to our region, particularly regions that have more limited transportation options. And how do we as a group have a role to play to actually get the most out of those benefits? I know Mayor McEwen has mentioned this opens up opportunities for Anmore to be connected to the Evergreen line in a way that it's not connected now. And I think there's those types of opportunities that do exist in many different parts of the region. I think we also do need to recognize that there is a other side of ride hailing that in many other communities has seen increased congestion there, particularly in more urban areas there. And I think that's something we want to be a part of that conversation. But I think the reality is, for us to be a part of those conversations, we need to be able to demonstrate that we're able to actually work together and come together as a broad set of municipalities. I think there are plenty of examples across North America where all jurisdiction has been pulled away from local governments by state or provincial governments because we haven't been able to work together in this regard. And I think that's critically important. I think we got to recognize that that's definitely in play in these conversations as well too. So with that, I am going to call the question. All those in favor in the motion? Opposed? Unopposed. Carries. Okay, moving on to the next item, and I know Kevin Desin has a tight schedule, but maybe an abbreviated management report to be presented to the Mayor's Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll be fairly quick given the time. So I don't know who's got the clicker. So the first thing, joined by Sarah Ross, who's our Director of Service Planning. So the first item that I want to go through is just give you a quick status of our rapid bus program going forward. We're now in a countdown to, thank you, to January 6th, where we will be introducing 2 brand new routes, and we're very excited about that. The R3 Lougheed Highway route, connecting Maple Ridge, Pitt Meadows to Coquitlam, and the R41 41st Avenue route in Vancouver. We'll also be rebranding the existing B lines on King George Boulevard, which we're renaming the R1, and the existing Hastings B line, which we're renaming R5. Last but definitely not least, in April, we will be introducing the R2 Marine Drive route in North Vancouver. As we've reported before, that route was slowed down a little bit by some construction issues on the North Shore, but we're going to be looking forward to a great launch on the North Shore with that route. Just to remind you that the purpose of this is by retiring, if you will, the Beeline brand and reintroducing as Rapid Ride. It signals that we're upping our game on bus service on our high-capacity corridors. It's not just frequent service with 60-foot articulated coaches. It now includes significant travel time benefits. Thank you to all the cities that have helped us to make that happen, to speed up the service by as much as 20%. We have a number of different and improved customer amenities associated with the service as well. So as I said, we're fast preparing for the launch. We've already begun some of the initial awareness and marketing campaigns around the Rapid Ride. You'll see in your communities the new bus stop poles with the new information elements on the bus stop poles are already going up, and your residents and our customers will be seeing some of that. That includes the new real-time information, countdown information at the stops for the route. So be looking for marketing materials and collateral materials out in the region. And we have a little video too.
I'm trying to extend.
So that was for the Lougheed corridor. For my friends Mayor Dingwall and Mayor Morton in particular. We'll be launching the B lines on January 6th at Coquitlam. That's where we'll be doing a press events. Each of the 3 new routes will have one of these. This is part of the social media campaign. And it's meant, if you recall our Dine the Line video from earlier this year, it's meant to demonstrate the various different destinations that can be accessed by the rapid bus. But we have a similar one for Vancouver on the 41st, and we will have, of course, a similar one as well on the North Shore. We'll be looking for other social media elements going forward. And again, we just want to thank all of you working with the cities and with the province, of course, on Lougheed Highway to help make this happen and help step up our game on rapid bus. Looking forward to expediting the planning on the 2 new rapid bus lines that will be launched in the 2021 period, serving Surrey, Burnaby, and Richmond. So now with that,
I think you look sharp in that photo, Mayor Stewart. So,
I like your socks.
so with that, we love to show that off. He's our best marketer for bikes on buses and bikes on transit. So we always love seeing Mayor Stewart in his Lycra. So with that, I want to turn over to sorry, Mayor. And that would be Mayor Richard Stewart in Lycra, by the way. So, Mike, I don't know if you can put up the next. I don't know if how it.
Here, also just want to.
I just before. So I want to. So this next item, I just want to introduce it. We brought this to the mayor's to the Translink board last week. It's basically years in the making of stepping up our game, and in fact being North American leaders, if not a worldwide leader on improving accessibility at our bus stops. And Sarah and her team have worked really, really hard and really creatively to make this happen. So Sarah will give an abbreviated version of what we presented to the Translink board, and the Translink board approved on Friday last week.
Thank you. So through our engagement with our Access Transit Users Advisory Committee and with the broader vision loss community, we've really come to understand that there are 2 key barriers for people who are blind or partially sighted traveling independently. And that is, how do they know they're standing at a bus stop? And we heard from members of the community who have stood and next to parking poles and wondered why the bus isn't stopping until some member of the public said, "Excuse me, are you trying to wait for the bus?" How do they know that they're at a bus stop? How do they know that they're at the right bus stop? And these 2 questions have become our touch points as we worked through this process. And so in trying to figure out how we could address these barriers, we looked to what are other cities doing, and to be honest, we didn't find a lot. There is no other Canadian agency that is providing tactile or braille information at bus stops beyond some small-scale pilots. And internationally, those agencies that do something system-wide, it's very, very limited to typically a bus stop identifier. Maybe it just says the word bus. And so we are going to be taking a 3-pronged approach to addressing this that involves signage, walking, surface indicators, and a wayfinding technology pilot. So tactile walking surface indicators, as shown in this image here, are on the sidewalk, and they come in different shapes depending on the context, because that's actually a form of language that communicates to somebody who has vision loss what the context is for them. So we already install these on our facilities and properties as part of our upgrade program. So if we're upgrading a station and we have bus stops that are on our facilities, we install these. We're going to be doing a more proactive approach now to go out and make sure these are installed on all of our facilities and work with your municipalities. And we do provide cost share funding for, and many municipalities do install these, and some don't, so there is some inconsistency. We are working through our Regional Transportation Advisory Committee to try to improve and resolve that inconsistency. We'll be installing braille and tactile signage at every bus stop in the region, which is about 8,500 bus stops. And that signage is going to have the word stop, or if it's in an exchange or a loop, it'll have the word bay with the bay number. It's going to have the unique stop ID number. It will have the route numbers of the buses that stop there, as well as the phone number for people to access for further information. And this will help people know they're at a bus stop and know that they're at the right bus stop. And finally, we're going to be doing a technology pilot. We haven't designed this yet. We're going to be working with the vision loss community to understand what still some of the barriers might be, what some of the options for technology might be, and determine what might be feasible to implement and do some work with them and pilot something. And so this has been supported by our Access Transit Advisory Committee. We had a number of members of the vision loss community at the board on Friday who spoke very powerfully about this, approved by the Translink board. And then in early 2020, we will begin the detailed work planning and going through our internal steps and then begin implementation. And we expect substantial completion of this to be done within 3 years.
Okay. That's our report.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Froese?
Thank you for that, and thank you, sir, for that report. I know the board enthusiastically endorsed this, and we heard from several delegations of people who don't have sight, and it really brings it to us as we're sitting around a table, and all of us have pretty good vision, and to understand through what the stories that we heard, how difficult it is to move through our system, and then the applause and the support for what Translink is doing. We're pretty much leaders in North America, and we were fully supportive of this, and really do appreciate it. I want to make just want to highlight a point that Sarah made, in that there are inconsistencies throughout the municipalities, and we just went through a process where we all agreed on one process that we could work together on. I think working with Translink and making consistent ways for people to find their way to our transit network throughout the municipalities, I think, is very important. And I encourage municipalities to have their staffs work with Translink to bring consistencies throughout the entire region. And there is funding available through Translink for this sort of thing, to cost share with municipalities. And there may be other funding available from the province for this type of work. So I just want to highlight that. It's important, and I really do appreciate all of the work that Translink did in putting this together, because we truly are leaders in North America in providing accessibility for people who have a loss of vision. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Dingwall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And since our city was showcased in the video by our CEO and with some comments, I thought I would make a comment. We really appreciate, and I think I speak on behalf of Mayor West and Mayor Morden, the support this body has for the rapid bus and for our sector and what it means for our sector. And it's a significant enhancement. But I'll also make a pitch that to potentially select us for the next generation of rapid bus, or rapid bus on steroids, which would be dedicated lanes and advanced signaling, and really to demonstrate that cost effectiveness and model viability for this body. We've got lots of unencumbered lands, so I knew I'd make a pitch for that. So we're really happy, but boy, if you want to take us further and go to that next level of rapid bus, we'd love to demonstrate that for Metro and for North America.
And I do want to say I forgot to mention Port Coquitlam, sorry, Mayor West, which of course is going to be served as well by the new bus route as well. Huh? I've been given 5 notes to say, make sure you recognize Mayor West. So my apology. But also to your point, Mayor Dingwall, I know that notion of rapid bus on steroids, if to use your phrase, is something that I look forward to working with, we all do, working with the Mayor's Council in context of Phase 3 funding, because we know there's only so much we can do with the very expensive and takes a long time to build that SkyTrain as high capacity rapid transit. I know that that Chair Cote has also been very interested in finding ways to further step up our game. And this is a great start. And again, your work in the cities to help us find ways to make the buses move faster and more reliable is absolutely essential to make that happen.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note Coquitlam in that rapid bus too. I think we often think of these lines as one directional in terms of their importance, but I think really to achieve the successes, we want those trips going in both directions and have reasons to do so as well. Mayor Buchanan.
Thank you very much, and I'll just say we're very excited about the rapid bus coming to in April 2020, and I think our residents are looking forward to it, and I think they're also looking forward to a little bit of relief from the construction that has to have occurred to actually make those lines functional. But it's super exciting, so we're thrilled. But I did really want to just comment too on Ms. Ross, your presentation. I'm really thrilled to see the work that's being done in this regard. And one of my questions was just around, you mentioned that you're going to be working with local municipalities or working with the broader community. So are you going to be working with our staff within the local municipalities, and particularly with them, so across the North Shore, we have an ACDI committee, so a disability committee that all three staff sit on as well, so that we're making sure consistently across the North Shore. So if we're starting to see rapid bus obviously go across the shore and our lines, we want to make sure that all that work is consistent as well.
Mm-hmm. So we've been speaking with that Regional Transportation Advisory Committee, the staff committee made up of the directors of transportation, and I think in fact, I know that we're going to be convening a working group and ask each municipality to nominate somebody if they can. Could be a representative for all of the North Shore to work with us more closely to think about developing a plan forward on how we might improve more consistency. But certainly something like the rapid bus, this has been part of our implementation program for the rapid bus, and so I believe at all the stops on the North Shore will have the tactile walking surface indicators and, of course, the braille signage on the new posts.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. I look forward to this really moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Harvey.
Well, thank you. It's too bad Mayor Dingwall left, because I was going to say good luck after Delta receives their rapid bus on his request. I just want to say that on a serious note, that I'm so pleased with the program that you're launching for the visually impaired. It's just tremendous. And I know in Delta I've been briefed on it, and we're very looking forward to working with you on this and ensuring that we adjust our capital budgets to accommodate it as fast as possible. But again, my congratulations, and it's tremendous.
Thank you. That's great to hear.
Okay, so that brings us to the agenda. Thank you very much for the report, and with that, we'll call adjournment of. Sorry.
My light was on.
Mayor Booth.
I have to tell you, that's right. So first of all, I also want to congratulate you on the introduction of Rapid Bus and the new branding, and to thank you for working with West Vancouver. It is coming into West Vancouver by about 1 kilometer at this point. Phase one, I think support and recognition of the service continues to grow in West Vancouver, and I think the opportunities to observe other municipalities as well as the introduction of it into West Van will, I think, in the long run, bode well for having the service continue into our town center. So I just do want to thank Translink for their patience and their flexibility, and everything in politics is timing, and as we move this forward. So thank you for that. And then also just to confirm that on the accessibility changes, that the Blue Bus, is Blue Bus part of that program?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great, perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Walker.
Thank you, and I'll try and be brief. Ms. Ross, thank you, first of all, for the hearing impaired and that type of issue. Have any of the studies that you've gone through had a look at verbiage? We lose one sense and the other one seems to be a little bit stronger. So we go into most of our stations, they'll tell us which station we're at, which side of the bus or to go. Is there anything like that that could be installed on the bus stops and so on that would let people know that they're at such and such a stop and the buses that serve that stop are the following, so that rather than having to worry about whether they walk onto something, there's some type of a regular announcement made?
So there's a couple of different things. Our buses right now already have, when they come up and the doors open, there are announcements that say what the route is and and also for the people on the bus what the stop is. Sometimes that can be difficult to hear, and that's why having the tactile panel, which I should also say the tactile is raised lettering and it's lower down, so it also is going to be for people who maybe just have vision but difficulty looking up and seeing maybe smaller print. As well as at the rapid bus stops, we have buttons on the posts that do an audio announcement, so the rapid bus is going to have a digital screen with real-time information, and as our highest amenity bus service, there will be an audio function feature, I guess, that you press the button and it will read to you what the signage says. So there's a number of different ways that people with disabilities can get information at bus stops.
So if I may, I appreciate that, but you talked earlier about people standing by a lamp standard thinking it's a bus stop. It doesn't do them any good if they're a block or so away from it and they don't know where they're at. So if they come close to something, if there's some type of method for them knowing it's actually a bus stop, then they won't stay at the lamp standard because they haven't heard whatever the message is. So just some way of people knowing that when they get to a bus stop, they're actually at it.
Thank you for my apologies for not being clear on your question first. So a couple of things. I think the tactile signage and the word bus will help for sure. Someone will know that every bus stop in the region, if it doesn't have that, they mustn't be at a bus stop. And then I think we're one of the things the wayfinding technology pilot will help us to do is look at technologies that can help direct somebody to the bus stop from perhaps a further distance away. So there are different technologies, Bluetooth beacons, for example, that help guide somebody maybe from, and I'm not the expert on this, but from more like 100 meters away to be able to find the actual pole. And then when you're at the stop, you can confirm by using the tactile panel.
Okay, well, really appreciate the report, and we'll try this again. We'll adjourn our open Mayor's Council meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, actually,
Okay.
no, there's no other items on the agenda and no other speakers.